Vladimir Putin has a clear plan for 2026 Russia's rapid advance into Ukraine. The goal is the fall of Donbass, approaching the left bank of the Dnipro River, and continuous pressure until Ukraine's defenses collapse. But for now, it seems this is not happening according to plan. Instead of Russia making continuous advances, it appears that the situation is being reversed. The expected quick victory is becoming more complicated. Putin assembled a force of around 700,000 soldiers in Ukraine, and their goal is to attack from different directions. One of the most important targets is the Dnipro River. They want to get close to the left bank and, if possible, cross it. At the same time, Donetsk is also high on the list. They are focused on what is called the Fortress Belt and want to advance towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. These cities are important because if they are captured, Russia will be closer to full control of Donetsk and the whole of Donbass, which is at the center of many peace talks. But that's not all. Russia also wants to strengthen its control over the Black Sea coast. This will help support ground operations and reduce Ukraine's pressure on Crimea and its naval forces. But even here, there is a problem. But before we start, don't forget to like this video. It means a lot to our brothers. Content creator, thank you very much, and now let's begin. Russia's Black Sea Fleet was forced to retreat to Novorossiysk, and even there, they are still not safe. Ukraine continues to improve their drone technology. On March 2nd, they managed to attack and damage 2 Russian ships in that area. And Russia's plan to take Luhansk, another important part of Donbass, is still ongoing. But there's a unique situation here. Russia has claimed several times that they have already taken Luhansk, but this is repeatedly questioned as the fighting continues. Overall, it's clear that Russia has big plans for 2026, but based on what's actually happening on the ground, it doesn't seem that easy, and the tide of the battle is gradually turning more in favor of Ukraine. According to the Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, on April 1, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that Russia had already taken full control of Luhansk. But this isn't the first time they've said this. It's already the 3rd time. And even though they already control almost 99.84% of the area, it's still not complete. There are still areas they don't control, like Nadia and Novozhehorivka, to the east of Borba. So it's likely that Russia will still push to capture these remaining areas so they can say for the 4th time that they have completely taken Luhansk. At the same time, they have an even bigger plan. They want to create a buffer zone from Chernihiv through Sumy all the way to Kharkiv Oblast to protect their border against a possible incursion by Ukraine. They also have plans to advance in Zaporizhia and Huliapoli. If they succeed in doing this, they will be able to create another buffer zone that will prevent Ukraine from attacking from the south towards Donetsk. These are big plans, and they will need a lot of soldiers to carry them out. Vladimir Putin remains ambitious, just as he was at the start of the war. Russia's spring offensive has also begun, which is expected to continue through summer and fall to achieve all these objectives. But this is where the problem arises. They didn't capture Kiev at the start of the conflict, and now it seems they're struggling again to reach their new targets, even as Russia shows that it is still strong. The actual situation on the ground is different. The course of the conflict is gradually changing, and instead of Russia being in control, it appears that Ukraine is gaining momentum. Putin's entire plan seems completely overturned. The year he expected to be a year of victory, 2026 could possibly become the year when Russia experiences its biggest defeats on the battlefield. The reason why the course of the battle is changing is simple. Ukraine has a clear plan to counter what Russia is doing while also preparing to recover and reclaim the lost territories. This plan is built on 4 words: exhaust, hold, build, and strike. This is according to Oleksandr Syrsky, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, as he explained on ICTV. In 2026, Ukraine's first goal is to hold the areas targeted by Russia. The reason is simple. They don't want to lose land. Every area that Russia captures adds to the strength and position of Vladimir Putin. But while they are holding those areas, they are also carrying out the second part of the plan, which is to weaken Russia's forces. Russia is known for using numbers, soldiers, and equipment to crush the enemy's defenses. But the longer they fail to advance, the more they lose, the more soldiers and equipment are destroyed. And as that happens, the strength of their military decreases. Added to this are Ukraine's long-range strikes that hit right inside Russia's operations, further weakening its ability to fight. But what truly changes the game are the third and fourth parts of the plan. While Ukraine is defending, they are also building up their strength, not just in the number of soldiers, but also in equipment, technology, and capability. And when they're ready, the final phase begins, the strike. According to Sersky, Ukraine will attack where Russia is weak, wherever that may be on the front line. This means they won't just defend, they'll take back territory, and this has two effects. First, it gives Ukraine momentum. When they reclaim territory, their confidence and strength in the fight increase. Second, Russia is forced to adjust. Instead of dictating the moves, they are forced to keep up with Ukraine's actions. They have more areas to guard, their forces are more divided, and it becomes harder for them to carry out their original plan. In other words, while Russia is trying to advance, Ukraine is turning the situation around. They use defense to weaken the enemy and then attack where it is weakest. And because of this, Russia's offensive becomes even weaker. The offensive that was supposed to help Vladimir Putin achieve his grand objectives. Now it's clear that both sides have two different plans. The problem for Putin is that Russia only has plans. But in the actual fight, these are not producing good results. Many of their initial moves end in failure. Meanwhile, Ukraine's plan is not just words. They are already doing it, and the effects can be seen on the battlefield now. Let's start with their most important move, the attack where Russia is weak. Ukraine has been doing this since late January, especially when Russia lost access to Starlink because of SpaceX's action against its illegal use. Because of this, the Russian forces had problems with communication, and when communication is weak, coordination in battle is also weak. This is where the gaps in Russia's defense started to show, especially in the southern areas where their hold on the territories they captured in late 2025 wasn't that strong. Ukraine took advantage of this, launching a swift attack and reclaiming vast areas in several settlements. According to Ukraineform, Oleksandr Syrsky said on March 31 that Ukraine had regained more than 480 square kilometers in the direction of Oleksandrivka since they began their strike campaign in 2026. This is in addition to the 430 square kilometers regained in the counteroffensive in Dobrofilia, and even Kupianska has been completely lost. And this is not just a simple recapture of territory. These attacks are forcing Russia to move their soldiers from other places like Pokrovsk and Okrytin. This means Russia's movements are changing. They are forced to adjust, their forces are more divided, and more weaknesses are showing up in different parts of the front line. And this has another effect. Russia's plan to create a southern buffer zone is no longer sacred to them. Now it's just about getting it done. Because of the many areas Ukraine has reclaimed in the Oleksandrivka sector, Russia no longer has room to carry out that plan. Overall, while Russia is trying to advance, Ukraine is gradually destroying the very foundation of its plan. Direct, steady, and clear. Vladimir Putin cannot create a buffer zone if Russia no longer controls the very land that will be used for it. And as Ukraine continues to advance in that direction, which is also expected to happen in the coming months, what was supposed to be Russia's buffer zone is actually becoming a pathway for Ukraine to bring more forces into Donetsk. This means that the strike part of Ukraine's four-step plan is now working. And remember, every area that Ukraine recaptures is not just land. These are areas they can hold, defend, and use to further weaken the enemy. And when it comes to holding territory, it's clear that Ukraine is doing a good job. Since Russia launched its spring offensive in March, Ukraine has repeatedly managed to repel the attacks. According to Euromaidan Press, Ukraine managed to disrupt and almost block a major Russian offensive that attacked simultaneously in 13 directions, including the areas mentioned earlier. There are concrete examples of this. On March 28, Russia tried to carry out an armored assault near Robotyne in Zaporizhia, but it ended in failure. All 10 armored vehicles they sent were wiped out after being destroyed by Ukraine's drones. And this is not just a single incident. This is the pattern that keeps repeating on the front line as Russia tries to use more soldiers and equipment to break through. According to Medusa in their report on April 1, even though Russia is increasing their attacks, there are areas on the front line where movement seems to have slowed down. Why? Because of Ukraine's counteroffensive, which reclaimed large areas to stop Russia's advance in the directions of Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Dnipropetrovsk. Not only that, Ukraine still controls the outskirts of Kostiantynivka, especially the areas with tall buildings. And this is setting up for an intense battle. As Russia tries to take the city, it will come at a great cost. Russia could lose thousands of soldiers in a battle that repeatedly shows the same results. They are struggling to advance as Ukraine's defenses continue to strengthen. According to Ukraine, the situation in the direction of Sloviansk has become more stable, and they even managed to retake part of Minkivka after another successful counterattack. In the directions of Orekhiv and Hulyapol, Ukraine's counterattacks continue, further slowing down Russia's advance. What we are seeing now are repeated attempts by Russia to advance in key areas, but they are not succeeding. For now, they are not directly capturing the towns themselves. What they are doing is trying to control the surrounding areas to prepare for a deeper attack. But even so, Ukraine is still able to stop them. And all of this is part of a bigger plan to weaken Russia. The longer they can't advance, the more their strength is depleted. But before that continues to happen, there's another important part of Ukraine's plan, which is the buildup or preparation phase. Ukraine says they want to gather reserves. But it's not just about adding more soldiers. Ukraine went through a very difficult winter. Ukraine went through drone and missile strikes from Russia that targeted their energy infrastructure. Because of this, power outages and loss of heating became common throughout the country from late 2025 to early 2026. That's why they are already preparing now to prevent this from happening again next winter. According to Reuters, on March 30, Ukraine has already started to stockpile gas reserves for the coming year. They are also strengthening their supply of liquefied natural resources from the pipeline system that passes through Greece, and they are increasing diesel imports to prepare for anything that might happen. This means that the reserves they are referring to are not just for the military, but for the entire country. This is important so they can prolong the fight, because the longer the war goes on, the more effective their plan to weaken Russia becomes. Of course, this also includes the most direct part, which is increasing the number of people in the military. But this is one of the hardest things to do. As early as August 2025, Oleksandr Syrsky already said that their focus is on building a ready force. And until now, that is still the priority, making sure that Ukraine has enough people who can be sent to the front line whenever needed. Mobilization in Ukraine continues. And according to Oleksandr Syrsky, its performance is only at about 6 or 7 out of 10. That means there are still things that need to be improved. Syrsky admits that having the right system is important so that new recruits don't leave or go AWOL. According to him, the main reason why some leave is fear and lack of desire to serve. That's why Ukraine's focus now is to make the whole process more organized and clearer, from recruitment to training up to actual deployment. They are fixing every part of it: housing, training, and food. This is to make the soldiers more prepared and able to serve longer. When more people stay, they are able to build up more reserves. And these reserves are what support Ukraine's entire plan against Russia in 2026. Now let's go back to the most important part, weakening Russia. Russia's spring offensive began in early March, but even before that, the effects of Ukraine's strategy could already be felt. In the first 3 months of 2026, Russia lost approximately 89,000 soldiers. Currently, it's around 1,500. That's their daily casualties. This is lower compared to the nearly 100,000 they lost from November 2025 to January 2026. But there's a clear problem. Since the launch of the spring offensive, the number of their casualties suddenly increased again. There was even a day, March 17, when more than 1,700 soldiers were lost in just one day. That's the highest number this year. And the important point here is this isn't even the worst yet. As Russia tries harder to strengthen their attacks, Ukraine's strategy of simultaneously holding territory and attacking the enemy's weak points is becoming even more effective. Because of this, Russia's losses are increasing even more. According to Mikhail Fedorov, Ukraine's target is for Russian casualties to reach 50,000 per month. For now, they haven't reached that yet, but it's clear that they're heading in that direction as their plan continues. If more than 1,700 casualties per day becomes normal for Russia, which is possible as they intensify their attacks, the target of 50,000 per month doesn't seem far off anymore. If you add up that number over 30 days, it reaches approximately 51,000 casualties. And even if Ukraine doesn't exactly reach that number, the direction is still clear. If there is any shortfall, it's not because Ukraine's defense gave way, but because Russia is forced to retreat due to the heavy losses they are suffering. This is what Oleksandr Syrsky means when he says he wants Russia to follow Ukraine's movements. Ukraine is combining inflicting high casualties on the enemy, reclaiming land, holding key positions, forcing Russia to redeploy its forces, and preparing additional troops to gain an advantage in the future. As this happens, Russia's plan to end the war in 2026 is gradually falling apart. Russia wanted to intensify their attacks to completely break Ukraine's defenses, but in reality, the opposite is happening. One of their most important targets is Orikhiv, because it provides a route to the left bank of the Dnipro River and a possible advance toward Zaporizhia. But for that to happen, they first need to succeed, and this is where they are struggling. Ukraine's counterattack in that area continues, and it is causing heavy casualties for Russia. Instead of advancing, their movements are being hindered, and in some areas they have even retreated. Their advance toward Orikhiv has been pushed back, and it's clear that Ukraine plans to continue this kind of maneuvering. This is not what Vladimir Putin expected. Supposedly, as they intensified their attacks, they should have gained more. But what's happening now is that they're losing more, both people and positions. According to the new voice of Ukraine, the Kremlin's plans are starting to change because of what's happening on the battlefield. Early on in the offensive, they already saw the problem because they lacked manpower, and this is gradually slowing down their movements. Because of this, they are forced to scale back some objectives, such as creating a buffer zone in Sumy and advancing deeper into Zaporizhia. This extends into the second half of 2026, and in some plans, even up to 2027. Overall, as the fighting drags on, it becomes clearer that Russia's plan is not being followed, and the direction of the war is shifting more in favor of Ukraine. According to Ukraine's military intelligence, Russia's targets in Kharkiv and along the Black Sea coast are gradually being dropped. Instead of the major offensive that Vladimir Putin had expected for 2026, Russia is now reverting to the simpler tactics they used in 2025. Small groups of soldiers are sent to the front, they advance, get separated, are destroyed, and then are simply replaced by another group. This happens repeatedly, creating a cycle of continuous loss of personnel. And in this way, Russia is only accelerating its own exhaustion and losses. This exactly matches Ukraine's plan to weaken the enemy over time. As this happens, it becomes even clearer that Ukraine is the one controlling the direction of the fight. The situation on the battlefield has changed, and Russia's plans for 2026 are gradually falling apart. Even if Russia continues its attacks and gains some small victories, it is no longer enough to achieve their major objectives. They are now being forced to withdraw or change them. They'll need to change their targets, which is nearly the Kremlin admitting their goals are too ambitious for what they can achieve. Meanwhile, Ukraine's actions are direct and continuous. Their goal to end Russia's aggression is clear, and for now, they are implementing their plan well, especially in the south where they have quickly pushed back the Russian forces. This is something Putin did not expect, and he has struggled to respond as the situation continues to change in favor of Ukraine. As the battle goes on, there is one important thing that is not immediately seen: its effect on the soldiers on the ground. With each day that the fighting continues, it's not just equipment and positions that are lost. Strength, focus, and the ability to carry on are also. For Russia, the continuous deployment of small groups to the front comes at a cost. Even though this is done repeatedly, it has an effect on the soldiers' morale. When they see that the results aren't changing and the losses continue, their confidence gradually decreases. Because of this, it becomes harder to maintain the same pace of attack. Even if there are enough soldiers, when morale drops, movements slow down, and every step becomes more cautious. On the other hand, its effect on Ukraine is different. Because they are able to reclaim some areas and stop Russia's advance, the confidence of their soldiers increases. When they see that their efforts are producing results, they are more willing to continue even if the situation is difficult. This doesn't mean it's easy for Ukraine. The pressure and exhaustion continue, but there's a big difference when every step shows results. In this kind of fight, physical strength isn't the only thing that matters. The mind and confidence play a big role. The side that believes more in what they're doing can endure longer, even in tough conditions. As time goes on, it becomes clear that the fight isn't just about taking land, but about who can last longer. Fatigue, lack of rest, and constant tension affect every soldier. When it reaches that point, even if there are still supplies and numbers left, the whole operation can slow down because of the exhaustion of those at the front. This is why reserves are important. They're not just additional forces, but also to replace tired soldiers and maintain the ability to fight. If rotation and rest are managed well, one side's strength lasts longer, but if not, their strength is depleted faster, even if there are still many left. In this situation, it's clear that the battle isn't just measured by the number of soldiers or equipment, but by who can sustain their strength for a longer period. And as the battle goes on, fatigue and morale gradually become some of the most important factors in determining who will endure and who will eventually give in. In this situation, even a small change in the condition of the soldiers can have a big impact on the battle. When one side is more fatigued, their reactions slow down, their movements become more cautious, and the likelihood of making mistakes increases. On the other hand, the side that is more prepared and has full strength can keep up with the pace of the situation and adjust more quickly to any changes. Because of this, you won't just see who has the advantage on the map, you'll also see it in their daily movements, who is more organized, more prepared, and more capable of continuing even when things get tough. As the battle goes on, these small differences gradually grow and widen the gap between the two sides.